Hi, welcome back. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the workshop and I'm getting ready to load up to go for a surf. The reason so early, I'm trying to beat the holiday crowds. It's going to be super busy. It's a bank holiday and I don't want to pay parking. And on top of that, there's a few other people who are going to meet up and the same thing, basically trying to avoid the holiday rush and crush of people at the coast. It is Cornwall, and we are now approaching that time of year. It's just everybody wants to be down here for their outdoor adventure, surf few weeks of the year, coastal walking, ice cream by the beach, taking the kids out. Yeah, everybody wants to be here. Everybody has dreams of relocating down here to Cornwall, and from here on in to the end of summer, this is basically what, if you live here, you have to do. You have to work around that. You have to work around the holidaymakers' expectations, dreams, and what they're trying to achieve, and live out that kind of Cornish fantasy that they have for 2 weeks of the year, or maybe a little bit more. But to facilitate that, if you're local, you've got to kind of move, dodge, and weave in between all that. So, hence what I'm doing here now. Well, I've had a surf and it was okay, but the weather's really set in. It's raining and there's not a lot of holiday makers around. They have kind of, I presume, I can only presume because they are here, they got to be in all the indoor activities and places that they can stay out of the elements. But yeah, I've come to a little place driving on the way home called Crackington Haven. Now, I have spent a lot of time here in the past, not so much now, but in the past it was kind of a nice little treat for me to come here. It's not any further or any closer, it's just that it's one of those places that doesn't have a fantastic amount of amenities or car parking. So if you come to this place, you can find yourself in the height of summer being let down as you don't have anywhere to park, so you have to make your way onwards to somewhere else. It is a private car park, like everywhere, it's pay and display, but I'm just going to let you have a quick little look at Crackington Haven. It's not a tour, it's not a definitive guide to Crackington Haven. It's just me on the way home, just pulling in and having a quick little look and enjoying thinking about, all the surfs I have had here. As you can see, it's raining and there's a lot of sea fog, so it's obscuring a lot of the view. But you can see the cliffs behind me there, and we'll have a quick little look at them. I'm going to make my way down this footpath, which skirts a woodland. But I can gain access to overlook the actual beach and, should we say, Crackington Haven as a whole. I'm not going to tell you where I've actually parked the car because it's an unofficial hidey hole, and I couldn't even get away with where I've parked the car in the summer. It's only due to the weather conditions and as it is now, and I certainly wouldn't want to upset anybody by suggesting you can park the car there, so I hope you can understand that. But yeah, I'm making my way now, and you can see the cliff there down this coastal path. Incidentally, nearby there is a genuine ancient woodland, but this ancient woodland is different than a lot of woodlands because even though the trees are many hundreds of years old, they're stunted due to their location, where they get battered from the wind and the elements. They are basically like big shrubs, so a 500-year-old oak tree can literally be the size of an extremely large shrub bush. If you were to cut through the limbs and count the rings, you would get the age, but they're so tightly packed together, it's extremely difficult to count those rings. So this path is basically lined with all kinds of woodland plants, and it's really pleasant. The ground is quite slippery because it's been raining, and because it's so compacted due to the heavy footfall, you do have to be careful. It could turn into literally a skating rink. But yeah, we're moving away from the woodland now as we come down to the coast, and you can start to see those huge cliffs in the distance, shrouded in fog and sea mist, but that can't be helped today. If I continued along this path here, I could eventually end up at Boscastle, Tintagel, and this is part of the southwest coastal path. But I'm going to just plod down here and make my way into Crackington Haven. And there you have it, and it's National Trust, Crackington Haven, and we have one guy in the water surfing. So that's Crackington Haven, looking at it from the position I'm at, and it's nestled in the valley there. You can see how steeply the actual cliff rises, and it heads out and it drops right off into the sea. You can see the reef that runs out into the sea there, and indeed the small expanse of sand. And like I said, it never gets hugely busy because it can't really accommodate the numbers, and it doesn't have the facilities of nearby towns like Bude, Polzeath and the other beaches. Yet again, a better view of Crackington Haven and the actual pub there, the Coombe Barton. And I'll bring you around again. But this time, we'll have a look at the opposite cliff, which drops down into that piece of reef there. So there you go, that's that lonesome surfer there, just bobbing around waiting for a wave. And he looks like he's just turned. Is he going to go and get this one? He's paddling, perhaps not hard enough. He's up and he's riding. Well, he caught that. I didn't expect him to. He didn't look like he put a lot of effort in, but yeah, he caught that wave. That sign says it all, and to be fair and honest with you, I don't think you really need a sign like that when you look at these cliffs, but it's there if you do need reminding. And I'm just following the path down into Crackington Haven itself. There is a stream that basically follows the valley, and as you can see, it comes out here, then it makes its way down into the sea. Crackington Haven Surf Life Saving Club. Now, Crackington Haven has a long and very rich history of surfing that has taken place here, and it is one of the founding places where surfing did actually start in North Cornwall. Yeah, and this club in its present form was built in the winter of 1985/6. And that is the actual stream we were talking about. As you can see, it's meandering down through a little gorge, and it'll make its way to the beach. So there's the actual pub. You've got the car park there. A little shop that sells beach items. If I bring you around, you actually do have some public amenities, as in toilets. And this is where both rivers merge and join before going down to the beach. So this is the entrance to the actual beach that you have to take. You come out onto a load of boulders and pebbles, which you have to negotiate before you make your way down to the sandy area. And yet again, there's those cliffs, absolutely massive. So that's a very, very quick whistle stop show of Crackington Haven. There was a reason I had to use the public toilets anyway, so yeah, this was, you know, always going to be on my stop home today anyway. Yeah, so I'm going to continue making my way home and get on and crack on with the day with the family. I got back from the coast and I'm just out for a very small little end of day walk. It's only just a quick bimble around my local woodland forest. Yeah, so join me and we'll have a very quick walk around this small piece of woodland. There are several ways to gain entry into this woodland, but I quite often park at the very top of the hill, and in that way I can just kind of just walk straight into the woods without doing an uphill straight off the bat. Throughout the British Isles and the pagan belief system, the holly and the oak are represented by two kings, and they are locked in a everlasting battle. And in a pretty short roundabout version, the holly king represents the winter months, and indeed the oak represents the summer months. Now, they're locked in this everlasting battle, and as you can imagine, during the winter months, it is the actual holly king that wins the battle and reigns supreme. And when you come into the summer months, it is the oak king that reigns, and with his new leaves and the abundance and fertility that is around the whole of the woodland, that is when the oak king reigns supreme. Now, the holly king is surrounded by death, decay, cold, non-productivity from the woodland, and that's what the holly king represents. But there's more in-depth information online about these particular stories, but that's just the rough general outline to the actual beliefs around and folklore surrounding the oak and holly tree. To gain entry, I've just got to go through this gate, and it is padlocked, but there's a little path that goes around the actual gate post. It is there for a reason for you to gain entry. You just couldn't get any kind of vehicle in here without prior permission. As I just walk down this track, which you can see is pretty well defined, I will actually come to another track which bears down to a gate which has room for a couple cars to park. But as you can see, I'm now starting to walk into the woodland proper. There is native trees and scrub on this side of the wood line, but as I pan around, you can see there's some freshly planted native trees before you get into the commercial ones. You can see the forestry vehicles have, well, recently been up here actually, and as you can see, once they got to this top corner, they really did struggle to get a foothold, and you can see they've churned it up a little bit there before they came up around this corner and were able to make their way down this nice track here. Looking into the V between the actual commercial trees, you can actually see how heavy that mist and fog is hanging, and we're not going to have very good light conditions here soon. A lot of this greenery here will actually turn into or become extremely tall fireweed, and that produces a really brilliant purple flower head, and it will become extremely tall, and it is something to really behold. I'm now just about to go into the actual wood itself, so I should escape a lot of this drizzle that's coming down now. The woodland we're in here and that one in the far distance is separated by a road that runs down the bottom and a small farmer's lane that runs along there, which you can barely just make out, but all intents and purposes that's a separate wood over there. And this one here is quite heavily walked by dog walkers from the local area. And with every good woodland, you've got a multitude of tracks to take. That one goes downhill and you can actually branch off into several directions. But I'm going to head up here. Just a little bit further in, there's a little area the kids from the local communities have made like a little bit of a play den, and indeed my kids come down here and play in it, and we've spent a fair bit of time messing about here. And as you can possibly just make out, it's not too far from a vehicle for, should we say, very small tired legs, so I can give them the taste of the woodlands without, you know, making it a chore for them to get anywhere and subsequently beginning to put them off doing any outdoor activities. The air is pretty heavy with moisture, and you might just begin to make out the first signs of the shelter I was talking to you about. It's actually getting quite dark here in the woodland, but there may be just enough light to capture this. And as you can see, this structure has been added to, where people have tried to form roofs, walls, and indeed bits of tree stumps to actually make a bit of a den. This summer it's going to need a bit more of a refit, I think, and a bit more of a roof put on. But yeah, we'll probably be spending some more time down here. I can see new branches have come down. So I've decided to take this path and, should we say, just go down over the hill into a commercial section of this woodland, which is bordered by field systems. You are quite often presented with deers down here. If I'm lucky, I may get them on film, but due to having an old phone, by the time you start getting it ready to film, they're usually long gone. And this is why it's so heavily populated, because they have good grazing and arable land to gain access for food, and, shall we say, very easy access back into this woodland. And as you can see, all they have to do is just gently push underneath that bit of wire there. There's plenty of room even for an adult deer to do so, and then they can get back through into the woodland. Well, as you can just see, total carnage here, total carnage and destruction. I haven't been in here since this, or down on this part of the track, since this has just happened. And you can see that oak tree there has had branches totally taken clean off it, as this pine tree has come straight down and taken those branches out, and on top of that, gone straight across the actual track. You can actually go straight underneath it. Obviously, I'm going to say I wouldn't advise anybody doing this if you ever come across this situation, but you can see there's a lot of weight, and indeed somebody has been here with a chainsaw and taken those off, but you can see those limbs were literally tore right off. And this tree doesn't look like it's unhealthy. I can't see the, oh yes I can. Yes I can. I can see the root ball there. There. Look right the way down this tree for another, you can just make out that root ball that's going up over there. and that's substantial. And this tree going around, I would say, is probably 2 feet thick, and like I said, it's a substantial tree. Swing around here, this track will take me back down to the lower part of the wood, but I'm going to, as I've just said, and I don't recommend anybody do anything like what I'm doing here. In fact, I'll say don't do it for safety reasons. I'm going to be making my way through here and up into another part of the woodland. There's a real smell of pine here. It really smells beautiful and gorgeous. But as you can see, forestry vehicles have been here and they've been churning it up as they've basically been going around doing management. A while back I had the pleasure and the privilege, shall I say, to fly over a small portion of Iceland and see the ice in the water, and then come in through Canada and into the States, into Chicago via that particular route. Now that was a major eye-opener for me, because I got to see what I am going to call, and I'm not ashamed to say it, true wilderness. Even from the height we were at, I was able to see the fire roads and some very small communities, but it was such a vast area, and I'm talking, you know, possibly half an hour at a time before you really did actually see much in the way of mankind of any substantial nature. So that to me was my first real eye-opener of true wilderness. But what I learnt from that was that that was wilderness through the fact that there was not a lot of humankind or human activity in that particular area. Now when I came back into the UK and flying over the UK, I was horrified by the contrast at well, when you look down, it is just, you know, houses, it's built up areas, and indeed even the green spaces you could see dotted in close proximity compared to what I've just seen, you know, dwellings, farms, and even in the open spaces there wasn't a lot of room between those said dwellings. So true wilderness is a precious thing, firstly, and my take on all that is we really need to start addressing the population, because the UK is heavily populated, and obviously we cannot even hold up to the fact of having wilderness unless we address the population problems. This is testament to the fact there is a heavy deer population in this wood. I'm guessing some people would know what that is, but to others that is basically a shooting stand, where basically there's a ladder to gain a bit of height and purchase to look over a piece of ground that you can safely then discharge a rifle to take out the selected deer that you're actually hunting. So there you go, it clearly states it's not for public use, and don't even try to use it, and it's chained into position, and you can see the actual seat, and if I come around you can see basically what it is. It's basically a ladder with a seat and a rest for your equipment. But yeah, there is no need for anybody to mess around with this, because obviously this belongs to the shooting community and also the people that work and manage these woodlands. Now when there is people in here shooting, they clearly put on all the bona fide entry points that they are shooting. Either stick to the path, some will say, or if the shooting's going to be conducted over the complete range of the woodland, it will say do not enter. It doesn't go without saying, after you've seen that evidence, don't even try to come into woodlands if you can, and you know there is actually shooting taking place. I can hear pigeons and bird song, and for a, should we say, commercial woodland, which is usually not so heavily populated with songbirds, the reason we have a lot of them here and making a noise is because we have the agricultural fields running to our left. And that's what's so important about these woodlands, not necessarily the commercial trees themselves, because in all intents and purposes it's a monoculture and almost a desert for a lot of wildlife. It's these hedgerows here that border agricultural land that contain these woodlands that give a home to all the wildlife. As I'm walking along this track, I'm actually getting quite wet. It's actually not raining, but the mist is quite heavy, and my clothes has got a fine film of water already, and that's just by walking through this very damp air. I understand what you may have seen there as regard to that deer stand or hunting stand might upset some people, and I'm not going to make any comments on, you know, what you should think, what you shouldn't think, or how you know, things should be in regards to hunting and land management and woodland management, because quite simply it is a fact and it is actually taking place. So for safety reasons, if you're wild camping or bush crafting and you're in, or you're doing it, which technically you shouldn't be, in woodlands that are managed, you really do need to know your stuff, because do you know the hunting seasons? Do you know when people are going to be in here? Are you coming in through bona fide entrances? Have you had the opportunity to read signs? Do you actually know what's happening in these woods? Because you may feel that you are, you know, extremely up to speed with what happens in nature, the woodlands, and indeed throughout the countryside, but the reality is you may not be alone in here. But on a more positive note, this, like I said, is my closest woodland. It's walkable distance from my house, and like I said, I bring the kids here and we have a fantastic time, and many a summer day has been spent just plodding around in here. It does at certain points of the year get quite overgrown with brambles and that, and you do have to pick your routes, because some of these do tend to get left and they're never really used unless logging is taking place. And so, you know, for a vast period of time those tracks can become extremely overgrown. But it is fantastic, and you know, you cannot put a price on the value this gives you mentally, physically, and just pure sheer enjoyment by just being out here. I'm going to be making my way down to or making my way on this path, which then brings me down to a fork where I can continue going down to the river and then along a narrow track which will lead me out to a road, or I can go back uphill and do a circular back to where my car is. And that is generally as far as we do go with the kids, because like I said, little legs, and you don't really want to try and put them off being in the woods by having that, you know, can you carry me, I want to go home situation when they've got tired and you know, they've had their fill. There's a feather, and I shall be taking that home for me to make some arrows. As I reach this particular part, there is a little bit of a seating area down there, and you can look out over this view. Now, admittedly, with the fading light and all that mist, you're probably not getting too much of it, but it is a fabulous little view to sit and have a flask of coffee. And I'll take you to that little bit where we sit. And there you go, 3 seats. They are improvised, but you get to look over this valley, which has obviously been felled, but over there is complete native woodland, and that is a joy to look at. Don't get me wrong, I love being in these forests. The commercial ones, they hold a certain value, but for me the joy is in the native ones. But having said that, myself and possibly a lot of other people who may be watching this may have spent more than their fair share of employment, training and having to, shall we say, live in these kind of environments. So there you go, the track on the left heads down into the valley and this one heads up, and I'm not quite sure which one I actually want to take now. Like I said, it's a very short incline up there, and that's the one we take when we've got the young kids, just to make it a short simple loop. This one on the other hand puts a little bit more time and obviously a lot more exertion because you've got a bigger part of a uphill to do, and I'm not quite sure which one I want to take now. Well, I've chosen the shorter one. I do believe I've made the correct choice, quite simply because there is droplets of water coming down. It's showering and there's mist, so I don't think it would make much sense to add extra time. But you can quite clearly see this is quite a steep gradient, and little ones do need a bit of encouragement, if not being popped on daddy's shoulders to get up over this hill. And here I have a sloping gravel track to negotiate, and I'm going to use that word not too loosely, because it is steep enough for you to have to, you know, plant your feet down and be sure what you're doing. It's actually loose shale, as you can see. It's all loose. The grass is wet, and it wouldn't take much for you to end up on your ass, and then you'd have to look around to make sure there wasn't a dog walker looking at you, laughing at your misfortune. Now, sometimes I might always seem cautious, and I talk about safety while you're in the outdoors, woodlands, forestries and moorlands, you know, and sometimes that might seem a bit of a drag, but I always like to state to people, you have to take responsibility for your own personal well-being. And behind me you can see a deer track going into that piece of woodland there. Now, in theory and in my thinking, I would possibly follow that myself to gain entry into this portion of woodland here if I was I don't know, camping or whatever, doing stuff in this woodland. But I also do know it's very close to a quarry edge, and if it was dark and you weren't fully prepared and you weren't, you know, looking out for any possible dangers, you could quite easily go off the edge of a quarry, because this actually, the woodland butts not just up to it, it kind of overhangs it, so you could find yourself just walking straight off and basically a cliff edge into a disused quarry. So you have to take responsibility and take being outdoors with a degree of a safety mind, because it's fantastic being out here, but you do want to go home and be able to think about it and enjoy it in that manner as well. And there you go, you can see the woodland just literally comes straight to the edge there, and it is a complete drop, possibly well over 100 feet down to the bottom to the quarry floor down there. You can just make out the vertical side walls there, and it goes right the way down to the bottom. And it's a long way down there, and it's vertical. So, you know, I'm not just kind of making this up. I'm just actually stating, just take care if you're in the woodlands, and particularly if you don't know the area that you're in fully. Down in that field by the river, you might just see some orange fencing dotted around. That's a dog training area. I'm not too up to speed what kind of training takes place down there, but I do know they train dogs down there. I'm not sure, you know, like I've said, what type of training, but you can very often see a group of people and dogs going about their business. And yeah, it's always entertaining to sit here and just watch that happen in the summer. And here's the bottom of the quarry, looking over into it. And you can see the quarry face as I bring it up, and you can see quite easily there would be the top bit where the trees are growing out, and that's a substantial drop all the way down to the bottom there. And you can see the same over there. You can just see the rock face through the new leaves that are growing. I'm continuing down this track, and it's more of a, shall I use the word sensible gradient now in these wet conditions. And it forks off again and it makes its way down to the road, or further down the road. I'm actually going to continue along this particular track, as I'm getting quite wet now. And I'm going to make my way up through this portion of the woodland. This track has brought me out to a clearing, and it's obviously where the forestry people, when they're clearing the woodland, would bring in their vehicles to load them up and stack and sort their wood. It is a little bit boggy down here because it's low lying compared to the woodland above us, and as you can see, it's really boggy down here, and it always seems to be wet in the actual summer months. But for me, I will continue up this track which skirts along the actual lane, and I'll make my way up to the top, and that will be where I'll join the track on that first split when we came into the woodland, and I'll walk back to my car. So indeed, I'm back to where I started, and that was a very small circular in the woodland which we call our woodland. Obviously I don't own it, and the tracks within it are by permissive use, which ultimately means that they could in effect be taken from use if management or use of this woodland is happening. I hope that they don't get taken for any other reason, because as you've seen, to have this on the doorstep has been a lifesaver really, because as we all know, during the crazy times the world has been through in the last couple of years, we were able to escape it as a family and come down here and do some exercise, some resetting of the mind, and then go back home feeling fresh and ready to deal with whatever was going to be thrown at us by the world in general. And yeah, so we feel very privileged that we have access to what you've just seen. I realise that might not be the case for some people, and indeed my heart does go out to people that don't have access to this. But I just hope, like, you know, that you can see or just derive some sort of fleeting pleasure from seeing what a small circular little walk near my home is for myself. And even if you just have to imagine yourself doing it as well. But yeah, this is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks, and I'll catch you again in another video.